Welcome back, y'all, and happy Thursday. I just finished watching the SCORE Act discussion hearing. The SCORE Act is the NIL bill that we talked about that's very institution-friendly and it's almost anti-player. It was handwritten pretty much by the college sports mafia, the same group of people that had the DOJ send a letter to ZZ's judge, pretty much begging them not to give ZZ his fifth year. We now know that ZZ won't be able to get his fifth year. These people, for me, are the enemy 100%. I think that they should be the enemy of all Tennessee fans and all college sports fans, period, because they're keeping us from moving forward. We want to know who's going to be on our team every year. We kind of want to go back to how college sports used to feel. They're the ones that are keeping that from happening at this point. But this hearing was really just to get feedback from both sides of this thing, because this is not a bill just yet. It's a draft of a bill. And they, I think with this feedback, they will be able to go back and make the bill or the draft of this bill look a lot better. And what I'm going to do for y'all today is just give you some of the key arguments, some of the key talking points from both sides. And I'll also let you listen to and see some of the highlights from both sides. And I'll be giving you my thoughts and all that as we go throughout. And we will also get to hear from a congressperson from the state of Tennessee that's going to bring up Nico. So it should be fun for everybody. But I would love for y'all to chime in. Give me your thoughts. What are you thinking? And of course, as we go throughout, I'm going to be giving you mine. As always, y'all, please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And we're going to start right here. These are just some of the key arguments from all sides of this. So if they're for the bill, their biggest thing was let's just limit the earnings that the players make. And they would talk about the players getting an education. They would talk about having an even playing field. But they were never for that. And actually, if you go back and watch the full thing, you'll hear a lot of folks call them out like, man, look, y'all have never cared about the players getting an education. Y'all have never cared about this even playing field. And they're just using this guys and they're being greedy. And actually, someone called them out and said flat out, y'all are greedy. So I was happy to hear that pushback. But that's pretty much what their argument is. Now, there will be, I'll show you who the witnesses are too in here in just a second. But you will hear from some of the higher ups from some of these smaller institutions or from some players that aren't, playing, bigger revenue generating sports that might be on the side of this bill. But it's just because, they want to make sure that they're not left out. And at the end, I'm going to tell you how I think that we could fix all of this where, everything does make sense. But we already know that with NIL, there's going to be this NIL goal, this NIL clearinghouse that's going to limit, what the players can make off of their name, image, and likeness. That is against antitrust for sure. But also with the revenue sharing. Not too many people talk about this, but the 22% or $20 million is something that just the institutions came up with. No player feedback from it. And, that's going to be a huge problem moving forward. But as we come over to the opposite side of this, we'll, we can see that a CBA was brought up. That's what I think the biggest, I think that that's the best answer to all these problems is you need a CBA. It might just be for football and basketball, but you need something because it's not fair the way that things are playing out at this point. And then it's going to be tough. Like if you look down, you talk about Title IX, it's going to be tough for you to tackle Title IX without the CBA. And there's just a lot of other issues. But also, they want the players to get paid more money. So there's no limit for the NIL. That's what this side is arguing for. There shouldn't be any limit on that. But also with revenue sharing, didn't hear it in this hearing, but I've seen it in some different articles coming from the same side. They're saying that the players should be closer to 50%, right? So going from 22% with the revenue sharing to 50%, that's more on par with what you see from these pro sports like the NFL and the NBA. And then they're also looking for not universal health care, but they're looking for kind of like a third-party group to come out and regulate the well-being, of all these players, because right now the schools, the institutions themselves are the ones regulating it. And they're telling some horror stories about players dying and, the parents of those players don't even get to really figure out what happened to their child, like exactly how they died. And it's gross. It's been like that for a very, very long time. I'm telling you, we cannot let these people keep power because it is horrible. Honestly speaking, it's been horrible for a very, very long time. Now that the players are starting to get some power, maybe we can come to some type of a middle ground where it's going to be beneficial for everybody. But we'll see how things play out probably over the next several months. The next column here, y'all, I think that this is key because it's telling you what both sides were, talking about what they were kind of fighting for. Because once they redo this draft, and I think any other bill that gets drafted up and, whatever changes with college sports, I think that this is going to be part of it for sure. Number one, transfer portal. I've said it for a long time. That's the biggest issue with how college sports looks right now, especially from the fan standpoint, where some people think, well, I don't want the players getting paid because they think that that's the problem. No, the problem is that the players can transfer at any point. So now they can leverage the transfer portal to get more money. We want to know who's going to be on our teams. Everyone talked about it. It might just look like one transfer portal window. It's going to be different for different sports, obviously, but it needs to be at times that doesn't interfere with the playoffs, with the tournament, and all of that. Like I think that honestly speaking, the people who set up these transfer portals, they set those windows up in times that would make fans angry, so that the fans would be more on their side. But now that we understand what's really going on, we ain't gonna fall for that. Now, the next thing is going to be with the sports like swimming, like track and field, the sports that we see, at these world games. I think that Congress will step in and make sure that those sports can keep on operating. We talked about it yesterday. Those would probably be the sports that would get cut first if the government doesn't step in and make sure that they can keep on operating. But we pull all of our like world-class athletes from these colleges. So I think that they'll make sure that those can keep on functioning, but it could also be some of the smaller sports like a soccer or, sports like that that aren't really generating any revenue. And I think that that's great. Now, last thing here was with those agents. Everyone had something to say about the agents. So that's going to get changed. It should, I think, look something like there's a certification test that they need to pass, that they understand contract language and things like that. So we'll see how that looks moving forward. But I also want to show y'all this part of it right here. These are going to be all the witnesses that we hear from today. Again, it's not going to be a whole lot of clips, but I want for y'all to get, some of the highlights from both sides. And I wanted to make sure that we could hear from all of these witnesses. So y'all can see, what their background is and all that good stuff. Keep that in mind as we're moving forward. If you have to pause it, then definitely pause it. But I want to go ahead and jump into this thing. And, I will be pausing it as we, kind of go through, and giving you my thoughts. Please share your thoughts with me down in the comments section. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and let it roll.
I'll yield 5 minutes to Ms. Harshberger, who's wearing her Tennessee orange today.
You got to represent if you're SEC, so that's what I'm doing. I'll start with you, Mr. King. You hear stories about shady agents pretending to be college athletes on the phone, or cases where star quarterbacks get bad advice, they lose out on great NIL deals. How do you see agent registration changing the landscape for college athletes?
Thank you for the question, and it is an area that I hear anecdotally from our campuses that when they from time to time see a.
And listen, y'all, sorry to pause it, but I had to make sure that I did point out that was the part right there. You heard her talking about these big time quarterbacks, end up getting messed up because of these agents. She was talking about Nico. Of course, she's from Tennessee. I think that she graduated from Tennessee. So that's exactly what she's talking about.
Contract that an athlete will share with them, ask for their input, some pretty unscrupulous practices, trying to take advantage. So absolutely, I agree that this is an area where regulation is needed. The discussion draft provides for that. The real solution, however, lies in the process for discipline and consequences to encourage agents to not even engage in that conduct to begin with, to not take advantage. And then I think as part of registration process, I think in the past it has been difficult, but to have meaningful criteria that must be met, not too much, but that some general showing of aptitude to represent athletes in these matters, and then when they take advantage of them, to have pretty very meaningful consequences.
Penalties. Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna pause it there. If you're listening to this man's answer, so he's a rep from the SEC. Listening to his answer, maybe y'all picked up on this vibe too, but I don't think that they've even really put too much thought into this. And you'll notice that as they're answering, they haven't put too much thought into what's going to benefit these players. So the question was, what are you going to do about these shady agents? He's pretty much like, well, we just got to make sure that we've got some penalties, even though we don't know. I mean, there's no way for you to have penalties for these agents if they don't understand contract language. There's just no way. Like, they could go to court and they could sue you for it. You need to have some type of like real guidelines, some type of a real test or something that they have to pass to protect these players. Because in Nico's situation that I've brought up in some previous videos, that would have been prevented if he had an agent that understood what they were doing. But he didn't. And it's not just with Nico's agent, it's with a lot of agents that we don't even hear about that are putting these players in some really bad situations. And they had actually brought this up too, where, there's a player that went on to the NFL and part of his contract that he signed with his agent was, that he's got to give 15% of his salary in the NFL. So now he's got to pay his agent like, an extra $1 million or something like that. That's the type of stuff that if you have an agent that's somewhat competent, they would not let that happen. So yes, this is just, to me, this proves that the college sports mafia, they care nothing about these kids. They don't even put real thought into what's going to benefit these kids. And that's something else that was brought up several times throughout this hearing, but I'm gonna let this thing roll.
Ms. Montgomery, I read that Judge Wilkins said herself that the House settlement's still open to antitrust issues. Do you anticipate that colleges and universities could be the subject of such lawsuits? And do you think there's room for liability protections for schools as well?
Thank you so much for the question. You're exactly right. Even with the House settlement being recently approved, not even a week ago, tomorrow, we've already seen some concerns that have been voiced with regards to challenging some of the aspects. One specifically is Title IX, which we know that that's an area continue to be of concern.
Absolutely.
Albeit, I think it goes back to not complete liability protections, but there are some areas that I think would be appropriate so that the NCAA, its member institutions, as a national organization, has an opportunity to not only create but enforce rules to not prohibit or restrict student athletes, but more so to protect. To answer your question in short, I do see that there will continue to be some areas of liability and or litigation.
Many now say.
Okay, so sorry to pause that one late, but with that one there, what you're hearing is yes, there will definitely be some antitrust, pushback, right? Like there's going to be lawsuits. It's something that we all know. And the young lady that we were just listening to there, she was more siding with this bill, right? She was more on that side, but even she had to bring up Title IX. Even she understands that there are issues with it. So that just kind of like goes to show that the people who are, maybe kind of like favoring this bill, most of them, there's still plenty of pushback, and they're just more so there to make sure that their schools, that their institutions, that their sports will still be in operation moving forward. But this right here, this is a congressperson from Michigan. We'll listen to what she has to say.
College athletics are becoming indistinguishable from professional sports. While this may be true for a small number of athletes at a few schools, it doesn't reflect the reality for most athletes. And people are asking, why do we need federal rules? Shouldn't we just let the House case play out or the House settlement play out? As you all have pointed out today, states are already considering laws that will distort the system and risk the promise of fairness and creating what I worry about, a race to the bottom. We need a national framework with clear and real enforcement mechanisms. We must stay focused on protecting the athletes themselves, supporting the educational opportunities and programs they value, preserve the broad range of sports that colleges offer, and upholding the spirit of what college athletics has been, is, and should continue to be across the country. I know I'm naive, but I want college athletics to be college athletics. As we look ahead, Title IX must be front and center. We cannot allow new compensation models to widen the gap between men's and women's sports. That's why gender equity and strong protections must be built into any federal framework. For most Power 4 schools, about 90% of the total athletic revenue comes from football and basketball men's teams. That revenue isn't just supporting those teams, it's supporting the rest of the athletic departments. At the University of Michigan, for instance, this revenue helps to support 27 other varsity sports, their training programs, the facilities, and the opportunities they provide to athletes, including all the non-revenue sports that have produced Olympians like Michael Phelps, Tom Dolan, and Greg Meyer. These non-revenue and Olympic sports face uncertainty and possible like they may not be. And we don't realize in this country that the way that our Olympians get training is through this. We don't support them in other ways.
So I'm gonna pause it there, but that's what I was talking about earlier. I think that the government will 100% step in to make sure that there's something for those sports. Whether it's gonna stick with these schools, which would probably be best because there are so many schools, and or maybe they'll just have a whole separate, I don't know, something else. But they will make sure, of course, that we have something, moving forward to make sure that those sports have kind of like a farm system, I guess, or a place for us to choose these athletes from.
And let's not forget that while there are approximately 70 Power Four institutions that generate major revenue in the football and men's basketball programs, there are more than 1,000 other schools that offer college sports that don't. Across all the divisions, there are 500,000 college athletes, and less than 2% of college athletes ever become professional. College athletics are not just pipelines to the pros for a lucky few. College athletics are supposed to be pathways for a good education, degrees, leadership, and lifelong opportunity. And that's why federal legislation must include real athlete representation for both revenue and non-revenue sports from large and small schools. Athletes must have a voice in the decisions that affect their futures, and they need protections around issues like medical coverage for serious long-term injuries, academic support, and how they are going to get to fight for what's good for them. We must also bring increased transparency and accountability to third-party affiliates, like collectives and boosters. Their activities should be reported, regulated, and aligned with fairness and equity, not market manipulation. And as we consider any kind of antitrust exemption, we must ensure it's narrow and justified. The goal here is to preserve athletes' rights and ensure the long-term viability of college sports. This is a pivotal moment. We have the chance to build a system that reflects the full diversity of college athletics and protects what makes it so special. It means ensuring athletes are supported, not exploited. It means preserving Olympic sports. It means honoring Title IX. And we owe it to the athletes to get right. And I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman, so I have about 1,000 questions I'll submit for the record.
All right, so I'm gonna pause it there. She said a lot of, she said a lot, period. But I think that she had a lot of good points. Now, she was the one person that I felt like was kind of on both sides. It sounds like she's open to, obviously getting like that antitrust pass coming from the government, but she wants to make sure that whatever it is, it's small and it's something that's going to benefit everybody. So, I think that she made some very, very solid points. And a lot of the issues that she brought up, I mean, that we almost could have just stopped it there. Like, I think that she covered everything, but I definitely wanted to put that in there.
Could you share how the SCORE Act would ensure that students have equal opportunities for NIL rights, not just in New Jersey, but across this country?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And as we've talked about the House settlement, the draft discussion incorporates some of the key parts of the House settlement. And one of those is regulation of NIL agreements other than with the university, outside or third-party NIL. And the settlement and the draft discussion, as I read it, both have the common goal of no limit on student-athlete compensation, with one exception, and that is if it is not NIL. It's fake NIL or pay for play, and and it involves a payor, a company that is associated or affiliated with the university. Other than that, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with.
All right, so I'm gonna pause that there. So basically, what he's saying is, they're trying to take away this pay for play, where the schools are able to, raise these NIL funds. I'm not. I mean, listen. I think that there could potentially be a world where maybe you say, hey, like Aspire Sports or something, y'all cannot pay these players in, like, there can be no, I guess, money coming directly from big time donors and boosters and all of that. You could maybe do that, right? But at the same time, if you are going to let them pay these players with NIL at all, you can't limit what they pay them. You know what I'm saying? And then also, who's to say that, if they have a company that they want these players to do anything for it. Even if it shouldn't matter. If you want to pay somebody just because of their name, image, and likeness, I don't think that they should necessarily have to use it. It's up to that individual or it's up to that company if they want to pay the player X amount of money. So that's something else that I think is just probably not going to stand. We've talked a lot about that, but that's their biggest goal, or at least that's the guys that they're trying to use. Is, well, we just want for the money to actually come from these big time corporations and from these companies and not so much from these institutions. Think to yourself, who does that benefit? Think about who's helping them, craft all this stuff. Nick Saban, Alabama, UGA, that's who's pushing this stuff. Like, those are the institutions that once NIL started, they began taking steps backwards because they were able to circumvent these rules and these laws. And we already know that the players will always get paid, whether it's on top of the table or under the table. That's going to happen. So it should be up to the people who are making these bills that are pulling all these strings to say, hey, we're either going to have things be very, transparent, where we all know what the heck's going on, or we're going to go back to the shady business where only a few institutions can benefit off of it. And then you go back to penalizing the players. You're taking away Reggie Bush's Heisman trophies and all that for some stupid stuff. This is what I'm talking about. Like, none of this stuff makes any sense, but I think that we all understand that. But you're hearing it straight from the SEC's mouth. This is how they think.
With the New Jersey law, but other than that, an athlete's ability to earn NIL income from people outside the university remains the same.
Ms. Kozad, as a student athlete yourself, you know firsthand the importance of maintaining academic integrity and while allowing students to receive reasonable compensation for their name, image, and likeness. Could you share how this legislation would benefit student athletes like yourself?
Thank you for that question. Legislation of this nature would benefit student athletes like me because I'm the type of student athlete you don't hear about on the SEC top 10. And yet there are hundreds of thousands of us out there that are just as capable on capitalizing on NIL and doing a really great job at it. So having universal NIL rules would create that environment where we could all capitalize equally and move forward.
Okay, so I'm gonna pause that there because that is she's a former college swimmer. I think that she graduated in 2024. Either way, she's on the side of this bill. What she doesn't realize is that she's arguing against herself. She wants for players that, and I think that she swam at North Florida, small school. I think that that's where Chaz came from. That's the only time that I've ever even heard of them. But either way, she's saying that, well, no one knows us, but we can still make just as much NIL money as anyone else. But that's just simply false. Like, I think we all know that. Like, you're not necessarily going to make as much money as anyone else in NIL if they don't know you doing it the way that this college sports mafia wants to do things, right? We just talked about it. What they want to do is have it where you can really only profit if you have a big name from these big time corporations. And the companies can't, if you want to call it overpaying you, they can't do that. Or I'm sorry, these colleges, if you want to call that overpaying you, they can't do it, right? So how would they ever be able to make that type of money unless people know who you are? So this goes back to my point that even some of the other, whether it's people or whether it's like reps of different conferences, the ones that are arguing for this bill, and some of this stuff you can hear, the actual truth coming out of what they really want. And it's more on the player side. It's more on the opposite side. So they're not really on the side of the people who are writing out this stuff because they are against everything except for them feeding their own pockets. And I will also say this, that I totally disagree with the premise of everyone should have equal pay, right? Especially if you're talking about NIL. I disagree with that. That's not how that should work. So we're hearing some things that doesn't really make sense. Now, I want everyone to get paid, but there's no way that like a daggum Julio Jones back in his day should have been getting paid as much as, and I can't even think of nobody, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it shouldn't have been getting as much NIL money as somebody on the, bowling team or something that no one's ever heard of. Like, that just doesn't even make any sense. So saying all those things just to say that once we get done with this, I think that this is the last part here. I will tell you how I think things should look so that it is indeed fair and everyone gets a little something.
Mr. Huma, I'd like for you to indulge me for a moment. I'm going to describe a few provisions of this bill, and I would love for you to tell me in your expert opinion whether each one strengthens or restricts the rights of college athletes. You can simply respond with strengthen or restrict so we get through it. First, a blanket antitrust exemption for the NCAA and conferences that eliminates athletes' ability to sue over eligibility NIL, and compensation rules.
Restricts.
A provision banning college athletes from ever being permitted to collectively bargain regardless of their sport or the revenue they generate.
Restricts.
Language allowing schools or the NCAA to block NIL deals that conflict with existing contracts.
Restricts.
A preemption of all state NIL laws, even those that currently expand and protect athletes' rights.
Restricts.
Thank you, Ms. Tahuma. So from what I'm hearing, this bill imposes significant new restrictions on college athletes, but let's look at what, if anything, it gives them in return. Mr. Tahuma, if in your reading of the legislation, does it strengthen Title IX enforcement to ensure more women can play college sports or ensure that they benefit fairly from the House settlement?
No.
Does it include any provisions to help international athletes like Alex Condon, who helped lead the chairman's beloved Florida Gators to a men's basketball title this year, access their NIL rights?
I'm gonna pause it right here just to say that there were a lot of representatives from Florida up here. Like there was a lot of people that went to Florida. I think it might have been 4 or 5 of them. It was a lot more than any other institution. And it does make sense that they go on to be politicians.
No.
I just want to get this straight. This committee is considering a bill that would constrain or roll back athlete rights, block further progress, and give them little in return.
Correct.
I think we can do a lot better. It's athletes' talent, labor, and courage that have forced the changes we've seen. Not because the college sports executives wanted it, but because young men and women across the country demanded it. Congress should be standing with the athletes who are unafraid to advocate for themselves, not undermining them. I yield back.
All right, so I think that everything that she just highlighted there, she just went through like pretty much all the key points of this bill as it's currently drafted or as it was currently drafted. And she just said, okay, is this helping the student athletes? Everything, boom, 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 boom. And the gentleman there just kept on saying no. So it's basically like, listen, this is taking away all these rights from these players and it's not giving them nothing back. So I think that was perfectly done, very, very well done. But that's my total sentiments for it. But also here, we'll just come back here just to kind of show you some of the, like key points from both sides yet again. And I'm going to tell you here just very, very briefly what I think would fix all this moving forward. As far as the CBA, as far as the sports that will be working for these institutions, I think that it can really only be football and men's and women's basketball because those are the only sports that generate any profit. I think that needs to happen so that then we can have some real set rules and some real guidelines and all of that. Now, they need to be able to come together, sit down, have a CBA. Part of the CBA might need to be, hey, we've got to make sure that we have enough funds for these other sports so that they can keep on operating. Because as we know, it's really just football and basketball, really for, men's and women's, that's paying for every other sport. So it's not fair to say that they should be on the same, like playing field, with how much they're getting paid, right? Like to me, it's honestly not fair that the football team is generating really most of the money, but they're only going to get like 75% of the revenue sharing. That doesn't make any sense to me, right? So this is what I'm saying, that we need to take them, have a totally separate thing, right? So that we can, again, make sure that we can regulate everything that's going on there, but they're still able to get paid. The other sports may not be able to make any money because they're not, they are, they make revenue, but they're not really making any profit. So it would be very tough for them to get any money from it. But what we can do is make sure that they still have scholarships, that their travel and all that stuff is paid for. That's the way that I see it. Of course, I would love for everyone to get some type of money. And of course, they can still profit off of their name, image, and likeness. So if you build up a good following and all of that, you could still get money that way. That's kind of like, very, kind of like basic, very like overhead view of the way that I see things playing out moving forward and what I think would be the overall best look for college sports. I just don't think that it's fair to have all these sports that are generating just like a gigantic, number in profit that's paying for all these other sports that's losing money. You know what I'm saying? And say that, hey, well, we're going to balance things out. And I also feel like that would help with Title IX because if you're able to, take women's basketball in there, you know what I'm saying? That's okay. Now they can actually get paid. They're actually on a salary. And guess what? Everyone else, But see, I guess the only problem with that would be that if you're going to do 2 men's sports, you have to do 2 women's sports. So I don't know how they're going to figure that out, but that's where I'm at with it. It needs to be something that looks like that. And if not, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to, have something that works for everybody and we're not losing sports. But those are my thoughts. Please share yours with me down in the comment section. And as always, please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks. Peace. Thanks for watching, and please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel because that keeps us growing inside of the YouTube algorithm. And if you did like this video, here's another one that you might also enjoy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.